This week, I had the opportunity to visit with Joe Dillon. Joe is an entrepreneur and he's also a deal maker. He has facilitated a number of transactions, and most recently, he's been doing a number of jump parks. And I thought it would be interesting for us to sit down and visit about what he's seeing in the marketplace because it's an expanding industry. And I think that anybody that is in the children's entertainment world can learn a few things from him. So enjoy my conversation with Joe Dillon.
Please welcome.
This is another episode of the Defenders of Business Value podcast, a podcast where we talk about what makes a business valuable, learn the tips and tactics to increase your company's value that only veteran deal makers know. And now, here's your host, Ed Meisogland.
I'm your host, Ed Meisogland. I teach business owners how to build value and identify and remove risks in their business so that one day they can sell at maximum value when they want, how they want, and to whom they want. On today's show, I am stoked. I have Joe Dillon. Joe's is an entrepreneur, a deal maker, and he has agreed to come on and visit with us about valuing entertainment facilities and SkyZones and jump parks and things like that. So, Joe, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Ed.
Well, I guess right out of the gate, how about a little overview of Joe Dillon?
Sure. I started out like a lot of entrepreneurs did. I started out with a mowing business when I was 12 years old and, transitioned into being a ice hockey official at the age of 13. Did that for about 30 years. And then I've just kind of progressed throughout my career, started a couple of businesses and started a franchise and sold a franchise, and here I am today. So I'm invested in 4 or 5 different little businesses right now, and I own a SkyZone. So I'm excited to be on your show.
Well, right on. Well, I'm stoked about it. We've been talking about it for some time, but I guess right out of the gate, SkyZones. I mean that's the latest and greatest as far as entertainment for kids, right?
Yeah, it's been a great business for us. We've been in business for 7 years now, and the industry is constantly evolving and changing. And I think that's the key to this business. Obviously, if a jumper comes to your park once or twice a year and it's the same every time they come in, they get a little bored with what you're doing. So innovating your parks and bringing new things into your park is key to making this business go.
So as we look at value, I mean, how does that work? Where is value tied in the SkyZone?
Well, EBITDA and your everyday revenue is the biggest part of that. So, the jump park, I don't know what the industry averages are, but the SkyZone average, they're going to average between $300,000 and $500,000 worth of EBITDA on an annual basis. And obviously, a lot of these parks are absentee owned, so it brings a lot of opportunity, potential investors that don't want to be there drudging through the day to day. If you have the opportunity to own one and work in it, I think it's a bigger opportunity because you can keep your eyes on all the balls in the air and do all the negotiating locally and really help add value that way as well.
So the balls in the air, what does that mean in SkyZone land?
Well, you got to look at that business as a retail business, and you've got 60 to 70 employees. You've got 2 or 3 full-time managers. You have to constantly be innovating both your concession area and all of your different attractions within the park, as well as, your video game aspect, depending on what you want to do there. So keeping all of those things moving in sync and up and running is vital to keep the business successful.
So innovation, what does that mean?
So innovation. So when SkyZones first opened, they basically had 4 things that they could do. They had a main court where you could jump. They had a dodgeball court. They had a foam pit that you could jump into, and a sky slam. So it was a couple different basketball hoops you could slam into. As that business has evolved, it was really cool for the first 3 times people came to it. But then kids started to get bored with those 4 things. So now we have things hanging from the ceiling. We have a warrior course. We have a climbing wall. We have a warped wall. And we have parkour blocks. There's just doing different things within your park to make it new every time that a child comes in or a jumper comes in is key to having them come back again.
But you do all this within the same 4 walls. You don't have to build out anything.
No, we don't build out anything. We just change within parkour blocks, adding barriers on the dodgeball court so people can hide behind them, just doing different things. We also added glow lighting, so that kind of gives you a different feel in the park when you've got lasers and the lights are out. So just doing different things for different programming. Programming is a big deal to be successful. If you don't have big programs, we started lock-ins a couple years ago. So,
what does that mean?
So, they drop them off at 11 p.m. and they pick them up at 7 a.m., just like the old church thing.
Really?
But, if you program that out, parents have a lot of questions when they're going to drop their child off from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. and who's going to be there and all of that.
Especially this one.
Right. But we truly lock the door. We have metal wands and scan the kids and make sure they don't have any contraband on them. And then we lock them in and have them play video games and have dodgeball contests and mambo dancing and all kinds of fun stuff. But doing things like that can generate $5,000 or $8,000 worth of revenue in one night are keys to making that business successful long term.
So the day-to-day, it's the special events are where the profit is?
So the day-to-day is really where the profit is. I mean, if you're sold out, you're running a capacity, you're making $2,000 or $3,000 an hour when it comes to revenue, and you're running the park for, $100,000 a month. So you can be very successful just doing your day-to-day where you see the big jump. So if you can get a $5,000 or $10,000 increase when, you're averaging $120,000 or $130,000 a month in revenue, you'll see a big bump there.
But it's not a membership type environment, or is it a recurring revenue type model?
That's very interesting that you ask. We actually just started the membership program.
Really?
And people were concerned about that. So we have 3 different memberships. So basically you pay $20 a month or $25 a month or $39 a month, and it's different tiers. So it's 60 minutes every day of jumping for the basic membership. Your elite membership gives you 90 minutes, and then your supreme membership gives you unlimited jumping. People are concerned about capacity. In our park, we have about 170 capacity spots. So we can have 170 jumpers an hour, and we haven't really run into capacity issues. The good thing about memberships is it's recurring revenue. They're coming,
Sure.
and usually people are bringing a friend. It's not that much fun to come to SkyZone by yourself, right? So traditionally, that has, from what we've seen at the start of our program, we've got about 600 members now. That's been really beneficial to our business.
Yeah, I was going to say from a value standpoint, I got to imagine that does some considerable amplification of value.
Yeah, we have roughly $15,000 of membership revenue right now, and we're hoping to grow that to $25,000 to $30,000. It costs me roughly $90,000 to run our park, all in for a month. So just having that built-in base is really beneficial to, and hopefully continue to grow it.
So is this just your park, or is this franchise-wide?
So it's rolled out to the franchise system. We were one of the pilot parks, so we were one of the first ones to do it. I would say roughly 40% of the parks are offering memberships at this point.
Why wouldn't everybody?
Well, some people are concerned with capacity. Some people are letting others take the risk and see what happens next. But it's been well received from our guests, and I think the people that are the franchise partners that are doing it are happy with it. So
tell me about the franchise. What's the background? How long they've been doing it?
So SkyZone was the very first franchise. They kind of created the industry as far as trampoline parks go. It was started for basically TV. They had, I don't know what it was called, but it was like basically basketball on trampolines, and it was like they were going to try to create a professional league for it, and that didn't work out. But Rick Platt had built the stadium, quote unquote, for what it was, and basically a bunch of trampoline beds. And the local kids wanted to come over on the weekends and jump. So he said, okay, just throw $5 in a coffee can and come jump. And came in about a month after he started that and had a bunch of $5 bills in his coffee can and said, I think this is a great idea. So,
oh my gosh, I wish I would have thought of that.
Right.
You too, huh?
Yeah, exactly. So they opened their first franchise park in 2010, and I think they have a little over 200 parks right now within the system.
How does a franchise like that, what do they support? You know what I mean? Because all the infrastructure, the build out is done. What do they do on the back end?
They do. So here's the biggest thing for them is they provide the insurance, right? So big thing. It's hard for somebody who's going to come with this business plan to go to a carrier and say, hey, I'm going to do this, and then them want to pay for it, right? So so they help negotiate that sort of stuff. We have an umbrella policy, so all the parks are using the same insurance carrier. Obviously, the colors, obviously they help with the supplies, the socks and the foam cubes and stuff like that. They also help develop all of the new innovations and test those and make sure they're safe to be in your parks. So that's kind of what they provide as far as support.
So you've been on a tear selling these things. So tell me about, what's the market for them?
Yeah, I think this it's a great business because, being in the broker world for a little bit now, people are looking for absentee-owned businesses, and truly, if you have the right people run your parks, it's an absentee-run business. So people are very interested in that. Also generates quite a bit of revenue. Not your typical amount of revenue for businesses doing $2 million or 1.8 or whatever. So the revenue is pretty good. The return on it's pretty good. So I think those are the two things that attract people to them. And then if you're a good operator and you really understand the business and you've had some business experience, the business isn't that hard to run, right? It's like a lot of businesses. It's really the people you have running your park and making sure you're on top of them and you've got your processes in place. But it's pretty straightforward from there. So hire the right people, let them do their job, and it's an absentee-run business.
Yeah, well, that's always the hardest part is finding the right people. So in the deals that you've been doing, what do those employees look like?
Your customer is really your 9 to 15-year-old, right? But what you find is your mom is your biggest customer, right? Because she's bringing the kids. So you have to have someone that mom's going to trust when she walks in the door, right? So we've hired younger managers. Doesn't always work out the best. In my opinion, it's your 35 to 45-year-old person who's had some restaurant experience and understands evenings and weekends, right? Because you need your general manager there when you're open, right? I don't need my general manager there from 8 to 2 on Tuesday and Monday. I need them there on Friday night and Saturday night when the place is hopping. So.
What does a typical manager make?
And the system is wide ranging, but you're going to find I think our general manager makes in the $65,000 range. So we incentivize them based on their performance. Pretty straightforward performance structure. So they are happy with it. But I think incentivizing them a little bit is always helpful. And then giving them a reasonable base.
So when the buyer comes in, they're looking at that manager, or are they looking at the operator as where the value is in the process, or are they looking at I can remove myself and I just have to find a $65,000 food and beverage manager type person?
In every park that I have sold, one of the biggest parts of it was that the management team would stay in place. So people aren't coming in and wanting to run the parks. They want to maintain what they have and what they know, and take it from there and step into the franchise partner shoes and kind of deal with the big stuff behind the scenes.
So what is the big stuff behind the scenes?
Just dealing with corporate, making sure the royalties are all square, making sure you're on top of your advertising and doing all of that stuff. And then making sure your staff is good, right? So you can't have a 1 and a 2 in this business. As far as managers go, we run with 2 full-time managers. You need 2 ones because your one's going to leave, right? There's no question. Like, this is a business where they're going to last 2 to 4 years if you're lucky, because it's evenings and weekends and people just get tired, right? So when you get in trouble is when you aren't prepared with a bench of managers and nobody can step up and be the general manager.
So for a SkyZone operator right now, they're looking at it from the standpoint of, my business will be worth more if I have bench strength.
Absolutely. Yep. And that's always the biggest concern when I talk to potential buyers is, how's the management team, right? Who do we have? How long have they been there? What's their background? They're really interested in that information. Because like I said, I haven't sold one yet where there was going to be somebody who went in and replaced the managers and ran the park.
Got it. So what do the buyers look like?
They come from all walks of life. You've got some older buyers who are retiring and want to buy them for their children and help oversee them, kind of develop. And then you've got entrepreneurs who really want to expand their portfolio and diversify. So it's a whole wide range of people who inquire about SkyZones and end up buying them.
I know value differs depending on which, just the metrics of the respective business, but is there any consistency on, this makes a SkyZone more saleable?
Is
there a threshold as far as revenue or cash flow or people?
Right. Yep. No. So it's like any business, right? So you don't want to see continual declining revenue and declining profit. You want to see a healthy business that has been able to perform consistently and shown a profit. So I wouldn't say that anything's more sellable. Obviously, the less competition in the area is always an interest of a potential buyer. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward, just like valuing any other business.
You brought up competition. What are the competitors?
Yeah, so we have, there's several competitors. You've got your mom and pops who just decide they're going to go buy some trampolines and throw them in a barn. And
how do they do that and afford it?
Right.
I mean, from an insurance standpoint, because I mean, just, insurance in general.
Yeah, I don't know how they do it. I haven't done it. But
don't want to go.
It's an interesting, it's an interesting concept, but I'm sure it costs them a little extra.
Oh man.
So yeah, it's a very interesting business.
So with the competitors, so you've got your mom and pops that throw something up in a barn.
Yep.
Good luck, Junior.
Yep.
Hope to see you later.
Yep. And then Urban Air has kind of burst onto the scene in the last couple of years. They have a little different concept. It's a bigger facility, and they charge more compared to what a SkyZone traditionally does. But they're coming in with 50, 60, 100,000 square foot facilities and putting in bumper cars and electric go-karts and doing all kinds of fun stuff, as well as some of the Warrior Cores and glider coasters and stuff like that. It's a little different business model, right? The build out on those parks is going to be $3.5 to $5 million. So they're going to have to charge Disneyland prices for a long time to really be successful, in my opinion. And we'll see that they did a lot of building a couple of years ago in open parks. So they're kind of getting into that point now where their parks are getting a little older, and we'll see if they can sustain the revenue from when they open.
Well, I know that just over the 30 years that I've been doing it in different entertainment related facilities, that those that have multiple streams tend to do worse, multiple entertainment streams of revenue as opposed to staying in your lane and being really good at what you do. So yeah, there's probably some merit to what you were saying.
Yeah. They're doing indoor skydiving, and it's a $1 million machine that they use for that. So it'll be interesting to see what the returns are on it and see how successful they can be in sustaining.
But have the buyers, did they care? Yeah. I mean, is there enough differentiation that they say, you know what, we're not competing for the same audience?
Right. Yeah. I think Urban Air is a direct competitor of SkyZone. It's definitely the same audience. So can they provide over the long term what that customer is looking for and replicate it year over year and time after time, visit after visit? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
Well, I've always looked at anything entertainment related to have disposable income. But as far as SkyZone goes, I mean, people just go all the time.
Yeah, it's interesting. So in all honesty, in the trampoline business, or the whatever park business you want to call it, family entertainment center business that we're in, your average jumper comes less than 2 times per year. So if you can drive that to 3 times a year or 4 times a year, you're going to see a much bigger increase in your revenue. So how do you do that, right? Different things. If a kid comes to the park and has a blast in your park for an hour and a half, and they still feel like they had more stuff to do, they want to come back.
Yeah.
If they come to your park and spend 90 minutes in your park and they're bored because they've done everything and it's not fun, they're not coming back, right? So innovating, doing new things, having new things to entertain and engage them is vital to the success, in my opinion.
An odd question, but I've always wanted to, especially since my kids went to your park, feeding them pizza before jumping. I just want to know what kind of landmine is that? Yes,
so that's why we do our birthday parties jumping first, and then you go to the party room, and then you exit the building. That's the way you do it.
I didn't know. I when my kid would tell me that we had pizza, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, we actually don't have a whole lot of issues with that, but we do set up the birthday parties a specific way for a reason, right? So yeah.
So with the franchise, has it been people buy franchises because of the system and the process. Has it been consistent? to what you expected?
Right.
Or is it evolving?
I would tell you, like any other franchise owner, that it likely isn't exactly what you thought it would be, right? So we thought we would see a little bit more on the advertising side. We have an ad fund that we contribute to on a monthly, actually on a bi-weekly basis. And we don't feel like we get the bang for the buck, but I'm sure a lot of franchise partners will tell you that. But all in all, the system's very solid. We're the leaders in the industry. We were the first ones. We really created this space. And we've gotten really good over the last 18 to 24 months at innovations and doing new cool stuff. So I think the future's bright.
Back to the deals. I mean, from a lending standpoint, I mean, has it been easy to get lending?
Yeah, I have not had any issues. I mean, you'll find some lenders who are like, we won't loan you more than $500,000 on this $1.5 million park. And then you'll find several SBA lenders that will give you 95% financing on that park. So it's just finding the right lender and who has the appetite for it. And it's just like any business deal.
Right. Well, so we know that every business deal, especially that has financing, they're looking at the person's resume or the buyer's resume. What does that resume need to look like?
Usually just having some experience owning your own business.
Oh,
that's
so
that's what they're looking for.
Okay. And as far as structure, I mean, what did the structure typically look like, or was there similarities between the deals you've done?
When you talk about
structure of deal structure.
Yeah, it's just like any deal. Like some people want to hold back, somebody want to earn out, just depending on what it looks like. But and some people are just going to pay straight cash for it. So it just depends. And some franchise partners want to stay on for a little bit and do some consulting and help, and some just want to take their money and run. So it just depends on the franchise partner and the potential buyer of what the deal ends up looking like.
Got it. So with the with those that sought cash or got cash, how big of a discount was it, or was there any?
There's no discount. I mean, it's a traditional business deal, and I think in this business you look to 3 to 3.5 times as your kind of guide for an EBITDA multiple. And then you negotiate from there. So there's really no deal for cash.
Got it. Sense. No, that's fine. So then the merits of financing, so you got 95% financing. So then I guess if I'm the buyer, I'm looking at, all right, I'm walking into a new business that I don't know a whole lot about. I'm going to go get support from the franchisor. How do I mitigate that risk? Mitigate just business owner risk.
Yeah. Yep. You got to do your due diligence and really understand your market and understand what's going on. And then I think the most successful buyers I have seen have really kept things status quo for at least 3 to 6 months and really get in and understand the business and then understand where they can make that impact. Now, you will occasionally have someone who buys a SkyZone that has several other parks. Obviously, he's got his own little way of doing things, or she has her different way of doing things. But moving forward, I would say a new buyer traditionally is going to really sit back and absorb things for a couple, 3, 6 months, and then make their decisions on what they want to do, move the business forward.
Are you aware of any amount of attrition from the employees on when, I know that's a big concern of business owners coming in that all of a sudden new ownership, that means I'm getting fired or, there's going to be a change. Have you experienced that?
No, I mean, so that's always the concern, right?
Sure.
But you're hand in hand with your general manager on a daily basis. So if you have that relationship and they understand why the transition's taking place, they can make their own decisions, right? But they also understand that one of the big reasons that the business was purchased was because of them, right? And I think that makes them feel good.
Well, the funny thing is that so many don't understand that, and they are the value.
They're the value. Right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Man.
And we've talked about retention bonuses and stuff like that. And sometimes a new owner will incentivize with a small ownership percentage that vests over 5 years or something like that. If they're really, if it's the right general manager, but I don't. Your general manager really usually takes pride in their park because they're running it on a daily basis, and I think sometimes they're not that concerned with who the owner is. So we've not had any big attrition rates because a new owner came in.
Well, that's awesome. So why are people getting out now? Is it just it's time? Multiples are up.
Yeah, I mean stock market's at an all-time high. You've got a lot, especially in the SkyZone system. We opened bulk of our parks probably in 14 and 15, some to 16. But, we've got park owners now that when they opened their park, their kids were 10, 12 years old, and now they're in college. So it's not so cool now that your kids are in college and they don't want to bring their friends to SkyZone, right? Like they did when they were 12. So I think you've got some of that, and you've got parks that are performing year over year over year, and people want to go do different things. So I know one franchise partner sold his 3 parks, and he's opening tropical smoothies because he can do it locally, and he's got less of a headache, right? Because he doesn't have as big of a staff. So it's just, you never know where it's going to go.
Well, what I guess the advice that you would give SkyZone owners that, one, is it the right time to sell? 2, what should you expect? And 3, if you're going to evaluate a deal guy that's going to represent, or can you do it yourself? I mean, what are the ingredients there? So the first one is, how do I know if I'm ready?
Yeah. So, paying attention to your business obviously is vital. So, what we run into a lot of times is people want to sell their business, right, when it's on a downtrend, right? And it's hard when you approach a broker and say, hey, I need you to sell my business, but we've got $50,000 of profit over the last 12 months, right? So really having a plan and understanding what your exit strategy is and what you want to do. I mean, it's a little bit cyclical as far as revenue goes for SkyZone. So you've got
annually or
no, throughout the year, right? So obviously spring break is a big time for a SkyZone, and so is a fall break. So if the kids are out of school, it's usually a good day for a SkyZone. But really understanding that and watching your year-over-year trends, and then understanding, do I need to put some money back into my business and do some renovations? And then, ideally, you don't have any concerns from a potential buyer if your business is trending upwards, right? Yeah. The biggest concern is if you have 2 or 3 years of declining revenue and declining profit and no end in sight.
So I know a lot of franchises that we're now at a point where remodels need to start taking place.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Do the buyers penalize the seller for that remodel?
Do the buyers? Yeah. So
yeah,
right.
if I'm looking at your park and
Yep.
you need to put $500,000 in it,
yep,
and they're not going to transfer that, who gets stuck with that bill?
Right. Yeah, and that's that's definitely a point of contention. So and part of the negotiations, like some franchise partners don't recognize that if they put $300,000 into the park, they could see a $500,000 or $800,000 improvement. But it happens multiple times in multiple parks every year. But when potential buyers are looking at a park, they're usually interested if they have a warrior course, if they have a warped wall, if they have a climb wall. If they don't, you have to understand that's going to be an investment you're going to probably need to make, right? And then what is that going to do to your revenue? So,
sure.
The trend is probably going to be up 14% is what the SkyZone average is. I've seen parks be up 60%. So, just depends on what it is and what you've done and how good you are at marketing.
Yeah. So what's the workaround? I mean, let's split it. You eat it, I eat it, or has there been no consistency?
There's been no consistency, but I mean that is, and a franchise partner recognizes if they don't have a warrior course that there's opportunity, and they're probably going to put one in if they buy the park. So that is probably taken as a little bit of a discount when you're selling it.
Got it. So if I'm a new buyer and I'm looking at, I got to put in a warrior course.
Yep.
I mean, does that scare me, or do I see the opportunity?
It's case by case, but if you don't have one and you're in a good demographic area, it's definitely an opportunity.
Speaking of which, what are good demographics?
Yeah, so
I have to imagine affluent, isn't it?
Not necessarily affluent, just a lot of house tops around. So we when SkyZone first started, it was 1 million people in the territory, and it's in a 30-minute drive, and then it went down to 500,000. Now it's down to 250,000. So I would say 500,000 people in your demographic is a really good start. It's really hard to screw that one up, I think, but it happens. And the territories are pretty much so all set now, so it's not like you're going to negotiate a territory. So it is what it is, kind of.
How do I determine whether or not I know you said from a preparation standpoint, I mean, you go through the normal exit planning, but from how do I know that my park is going to get optimal value?
So, I think the biggest part of selling any business is obviously exposure, right? So a lot of times business owners are concerned with people finding out that, we're selling the park, but confidentiality is a big part of it, of a concern of a potential buyer or seller. But exposure is the other thing that you really have to create the right pool to create the best value for that business. So, as a broker working here at IBA, we have a lot of opportunities to get exposure to a business in this price range. And I think that's vital to really drive up the business and the opportunity to sell.
So the buyers have been predominantly individuals as opposed to growing market share, or no?
Yeah.
So it's been individual buyers versus I'm looking at buying a park to add on to my other 5.
Yeah, it's both.
Really?
But usually I would say it's both, but the ones we've been seeing that really get advertised are usually local buyer, and that's probably the best buyer, to be honest.
I get you. But those that from a corporate standpoint that are buying, are you seeing a premium? Like strategic. Look, I'm buying. I've got 2 places here in Indianapolis. I'm going to buy a third, and now I have the market. Are they paying a premium over and above, or no?
It depends. I've seen premiums paid. So there's a potential for that, but in general, I think it's your 3 to 3.5 times a multiple.
So how do I know if I'm able to sell this myself? I'm an advocate, that you need somebody that's done this a few gazillion times. I just am.
Right.
And that the value that the advisor would bring, whether it's a broker or an accountant, I don't care who it is, but somebody that's gone down this path. I mean, what should a SkyZone operator expect from working with you, or any business owner working with you?
Sure. So, obviously the biggest part of your financial package is your financial package, right? So we need to know the numbers and really understand that. And then, sometimes it takes, 12 months to 18 months to really put a plan in place if you are ready to sell. So understanding that, and really being able to set up your financials for when you are ready to sell. Now, you can look at your financials right now and be ready to sell. It just kind of depends. But exploring that and understanding that is vital to being able to sell the business comfortably and confidently. It's not a simple process. It's not like you go to the grocery store and buy a 6-pack of beer, right? It is a long process. Having all the documentation that you need to provide to a potential buyer, it takes a little bit of time. So having that conversation with a broker or an accountant or someone who has dealt with business transactions is vital, just so you have all of your ducks in a row when you do find that buyer that is going to provide you with the exit that you would like.
So where can we find you?
I'm right beside Ed Meisegland. Come on over. I'm an Indiana Business Advisors.
Okay. Well, Joe, I can't thank you enough for taking this time to visit with us. Is there any parting advice you have for your SkyZone brethren?
No, I just pay attention to financials, really understand it, and plan for your next renovation. It's vital, and you usually see a bump in your business. So if you're going to keep it for the long term, make sure you're driving the business and hire a good marketing guy.
Awesome. Well, Joe, thanks so much for being here, and thank you for being a defender of business value.
Thank you, Ed.
This was another episode of the Defenders of Business Value podcast. For more episodes packed with strategies to increase the value of your business, visit defendersofbusinessvalue.com for show notes, transcripts, and free tools to start you on your journey. Subscribe now so you don't miss any future episodes.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Joe. He has an awful lot of history behind him and an awful lot of deal making that he was able to impart some of that wisdom to us. Everything that Joe and I spoke about on today's show, it will be in the show notes. So if you need any references to him or to contact him or me, please find that in the show notes at defendersofbusinessvalue.com/podcast.